All right, thank you. This is the December first meeting of the Parsons Area Merchants Association stakeholders. I'm Kathy Green. I'm the president of PAMA, and we have our speakers and some other PAMA members and the City of Columbus represented. Beth, did you want to give any updates before we get started?
Thank you, Kathy. Hello, everybody. Happy December 1st. I can't believe it. The only update I'm going to say is that if you're seeing, so thank you so much, Kathy. I know you shared with me some 311 tickets. I know that I'm hearing about the lights. So if there's any other 311 concerns, once you call it into 311, you're welcome to send me an email just so that I can follow up on that. And that's what we're doing with that. Some of the situations I know right now I'm working on, I'm getting some complaints about the lights and then the dumping. So some of our alleys behind Parsons and in the area. So do call those into 311, but also feel free to reach out to me. And those are my updates from where I sit. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. And we will probably include some of that in our next newsletter. I did open up, between Mike and I, we opened about 39, I think, tickets on streetlights that are out on Parsons between Livingston and Hosack. And we would like to encourage anyone that notices a streetlight that's not working to open the 311 ticket, as Beth said. We're going to be doing some other work, I suspect. I think there's been some concerns around missing trash cans or damaged trash cans on Parsons. And then also, I've just noticed recently some additional graffiti, and the city will ensure the graffiti is remediated. Those are kind of important things to making Parsons Avenue inviting. So we'll be working on some of those items. And if anybody has any other ideas along those efforts, please let me know. Tonight is the Columbus City Council virtual council in the community meeting for the east side, but it's open to all. I did register for council member Shayla Favor's breakout, and council member Favor has public services as well as affordable housing. So if I get anything interesting from that, I'll share back. All right, I'm going to turn over to Carla to introduce our speakers, if you would be so kind, as our treasurer, our executive board member, our scholarship committee chair, and our community representative from Nationwide Children's.
Thanks, Kathy. As Kathy said, I am the treasurer for PAMA, as well as a community relations project manager for Nationwide Children's. So I have the pleasure of working with Millie Dolce on a lot of projects. She's here today along with Millie Goldberg to talk about a project that they have been working on within their respective areas. I did request from Millie yesterday in a phone call late in the afternoon if she could kind of explain what she does along with Lily to the group as well, so that you could be able to grasp that. And from that, go ahead and take it away. Thanks, Millie. Thanks, Lily.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here. As Carla said, my name is Millie Dolce, and I'm a program evaluator analyst for our wellness initiatives at Nationwide Children's. I work in the community wellness department, specifically in the Healthy Neighborhoods, Healthy Families team, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, but just a brief overview. HNHF was created in 2008 with the purpose of partnering with many different community agencies in the South Side to create a healthier environment to address some of the social determinants of health and things that we know can make our families healthier. So as I mentioned, I'm a program evaluator analyst. So I work with a lot of the different HNHF program areas. We have 5 areas of impact: housing, health and wellness, schools and education, community enrichment, and economic development. I work with the different teams to try to make sure that we are identifying outcomes and that we are collecting metrics. So essentially, we know if we're achieving the goals that we set. And that's really where this project that Lily is going to speak about came to fruition. We had wanted to do something to engage more of our youth. We have an upward bound math and science program, which is pretty interesting for a hospital. Most of the upward bound programs come out of educational institutions. So we have a lot of students from the South Side, and we wanted to do something, give them practical experiences with science and research. And we also wanted to partner more with the Southside community instead of just coming in and doing research or evaluation and leaving. We wanted this to actually be a partnership. And so as we've been working on this, we thought it would be really great for us to share a little bit about what we did and where we are now with some stakeholders on the South Side to just kind of close that loop and give us some feedback. And this is a project that we hope will be ongoing. So actually it happened this summer, and you may have seen some of our teens walking along Parsons or Livingston as they did this data collection. They had t-shirts. I don't know if they all wore them every time they went out, but they had these bright yellow t-shirts. So I'll stop there and let Lily take it away. Thanks, Lily.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is Lily Goldberg. I am the HNHF intern, research intern, and I'm currently a senior at Ohio State studying sociology. I plan to go to graduate school for public health next year. So I've had the pleasure of working on this project with Dr. Dolce, and it's been really, really exciting and interesting. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what I am doing with the project. So I am, as of now, mapping a report for the entire project that will give a complete overview of what we are doing. So I'm going to give a little bit of a sneak peek of that overview today. So this is a data mapping project where we really wanted to highlight the community assets that the South Side of Columbus has. So we stuck to 12 categories of community assets, which were arts and entertainment businesses, dining, health services, fitness, public services, social services, religious, retail, financial insurance and real estate, school and childcare, trade services, and personal services. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but we wanted to have those different categories to really illuminate how diverse the assets were in the Southside community. So we are going to, well, we have actually mapped those resources on a map of the Southside of Columbus that has been made available for community members to look at, and that's on the Southside Thrive website. And basically, we know from the social determinants of health that assets in the community can really impact the overall health of the community and therefore impact individuals' health. So we wanted to see how those assets would grow over the years. We don't have like an end date for the project. It's kind of indefinite. We want it to go on as long as possible so we can really see how the South Side is growing. And so, yeah, the indicator of a healthier community would mean an increase in assets. The next thing we did was we wanted to focus on assets, but we also knew that deficits were important as well to measure because that can also impact the community's health. So things like litter on the street, graffiti, like unpleasant smells, heavy traffic. So we had students from Southside high schools go and observe those deficits using a systematic social observation method, which is really just going into the community directly and in a moment in time and just writing down the observations that they observed. So the hope is to see a decrease in the deficits and an increase in the assets, which would make for a healthier community. Like Dr. Dolce said, we really focused on getting the community involved, especially students, so that they could have real practical experience working on, a really scientific project. So that's been really amazing, especially because this project is about the Southside community. So getting them involved was imperative. That's really what I'm doing. The report will highlight kind of the methods we use, the results we found, the inspiration we drew from other projects, and where we want to take this project in the future. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask.
Thanks, Lily. And I should just, thank you for that overview. I should just back up for a second and say that what we did with this project was we had, I forget exactly, it varied, maybe 5 to 8 students that we recruited this summer, and they actually went out and they went along. We created different zones of the South Side. So we had 6 zones, and they literally walked up and down the streets on both sides of the streets and wrote down information about every establishment that they saw. So whether that was the CVS on the corner of Livingston and Parsons, going all the way down, they noted the name of the establishment, the address, and then they coded it according to one of the themes that Lily mentioned. And then they also tracked whether it was operational or non-operational. So we had teams of students doing that throughout the summer. We went out about once or twice a week to achieve our goal of mapping the South Side. And this is also something we hope to mirror in other neighborhoods that HNHF is becoming more involved with.
So do you mind if I share the website?
Sure. So that website really is only focusing on resources that we map. There's many other assets that we are working on a different map to include, but yes, please feel free to share that from Southside Thrive.
All right, that way people may have some additional questions. All right, so I got to this from the southsidethrive.org and then hit the resources and the resource map. This is it, right? All right, so there's a browse option and you can filter based on your location. And you can look at, so let's, for instance, let's look at food assistance. All right. So still mission. Fresh track at the Reap Center. St. John's Church. So this kind of extends into the Lincoln Park neighborhood then also, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think Southside Thrive may have added additional resources to what we collected.
Sure.
We definitely stayed for the summer project, as I mentioned, and specific geographic boundaries.
Right. So we have the food pantry, we have the All People's Market. Which is great. I mean, I know Southside Thrive, you know, is another partner to all of us. So if I can summarize, and you can correct me, right? So this is part of the mapping work that you've done to date, and I guess it's in these main categories, correct?
These are slightly different categories than what we collected. So we did this in partnership with Southside Thrive, and this is just how they have chosen to display the information. And so some of the themes that we collected aren't necessarily represented here, but we're working on a different map where that can be accessible.
Okay. And do you have a timeline on the different map? I mean, not like, you know, a specific date, but like a quarter or, you know, whatever. Is it like?
I don't. We have a prototype that we've developed, but we need to go back and refine a few things. So hopefully within the first or second quarter of next year.
Okay, great. And then the information around, if I understood correctly, there's a couple different purposes to this data. One of which is kind of over time to kind of map the availability of these assets, right? The community assets, to make sure that they're increasing, which is correlated to healthier neighborhoods, right? And healthier families, which is, the mission or part of the mission of HNHF. And then so that's around the assets themselves. And then there's a second part around, I don't know what word you used, but around the community. I'm going to use the word attractiveness, but there's probably a different word that you use, right? Where you were looking for litter and graffiti and smells and, other issues. What term would you prefer that you use for that? Or is there a preferred term?
So I believe Lily said community deficits. Lily, is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was just gonna say. So we mentioned community deficits as well. We're also gonna map those, but we're gonna track those, but they won't be on the data map or anything. So it's mostly the data map will be focusing in on the assets, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then there'll be a report as well produced. And is that a community accessible report, or is that something that the hospital, the community side of things is going to, use internally? What's the purpose of the broader report?
No, that would be something that would be community facing. And we hope really that this information can be useful for many different audiences. Partially why we also wanted to do this is because we don't really have this type of database. If we want to find community level information, a lot of times we go to the census or other data sources like that, but track things like the number of parks or arts and entertainment facilities or establishments on the South Side. We don't really have anything like that. So this is kind of a unique data set that we want to build and hope that people can use it as they're applying for funding, as they're making programmatic decisions, as they're just trying to evaluate what's happening and learn and try to track community change in a different way.
Gotcha. And I mentioned earlier, kind of using the Esri data to kind of map some of the more demographic information. That purpose was for businesses to kind of know what their, what their community that's closest to them, what the makeup of that was, from a tailoring perspective. I'll let Aaron talk about that in a second if he's willing. And then the other thing that I was thinking about from a mapping perspective that we've done fairly recently, the Public Services Committee of the Area Commission. I think some of you know Aaron Sink, who's the chair of that committee. We've been looking at priorities for the Urban Infrastructure Renewal Fund, whatever the R stands for, UIRF funds. And we were trying to map, like requests for improvements in, bike transport or sidewalks or lighting or parks, right? Recreation and parks, and mapping those against assets as well. And one of the assets that we were mapping was affordable housing. And I don't know if is that what your part of your housing part is?
This would be resources.
Gotcha.
So Southside Thrive is really focused on resources for community members.
Yeah, and we did, we used some data I got from Carly Booth, who's the Affordable Housing Alliance director and also a PAMA board member. And then the Community Housing Network Ryan Cassell and data from Ryan. And so, you know, I do think it's really interesting to look at, you know, how you map the data from a variety of perspectives and look for gaps and certainly try to solve the deficits. And I'm especially actually interested in the deficits as we kind of correlated to that initial conversation up front with Beth, right? Where we want to get to where businesses, employees, residents, you know, other stakeholders note, you know, when there are issues, right? And get those tickets opened so that they can be remediated, right? Because nobody really wants to live in a deficit-ridden community. But it happens when we don't pay attention. I'm going to use that term, right? You know, the idea that we have 39 street lights out on Parsons, that didn't happen in one day. That happened over, you know, a period of time, and they accumulate, you know, when you don't take note. I guess I'll use that term. Same with the trash cans, right? You know, someone said, you know, we've lost a lot of trash cans on Parsons, or, you know, they've gone missing or what have you, right? And, you know, that happens one at a time until it becomes a lot more noticeable. And so, you know, this kind of a survey, you know, again, it may be a point in time, but it is a point in time, right, that you can compare to, you know, as you kind of go forward. So I'm going to get off my part of the soapbox, and I am going to open it up to, you know, Carla, did you have any additional comments that you wanted to add?
No, not really. I just, I think this is the third time I've kind of listened to this presentation, and just really looking forward to the data that they're going to be able to share with the community. When they shared this with me in the middle of the summer, I was just really excited and knew that we would be able to correlate it to different projects that we're working in internally within the hospital, as Millie said, writing grants, etc., along with partner information that we could share, because we consistently ask for different information and oftentimes don't have it, or you know, it's very outdated, something. And for this to be such a boots on the ground project, I was very excited for it.
All right,
I'd agree.
jump in.
I was just saying, I agree. So part of my problem, I guess, or lack of interest in continuing pushing, providing the ESRI data was, you know, I felt that it wasn't relevant anymore, outdated. You know, these neighborhoods have changed so much. It was still referring to, it might have been capturing the point in time when 50% of the houses were boarded up, compared to when it was 70%, and that's not the case anymore. So this boots on the ground, you know, actual referenceable studies is really beneficial, because when I talk about different neighborhoods in the South Side in particular with other people, there's perceptions of certain neighborhoods and stuff that people have that just aren't true because they haven't been there. So from a data standpoint, how do you start showing people that maybe they're not seeing what's accurate? So I appreciate these efforts.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, do you have any questions or any comments?
No.
I'm just going to call him individual. And Stephen, I know you're on the phone. And
yes, just absorbing.
okay, thanks. Did you have any questions, Stephen, you want to jump in with?
Yeah, yeah, thanks. I'm fine.
Okay. And Miss Nancy Sully, prior Sully joined a little late to get the link. And so Nancy is the City Council community liaison for the South Side, and kind of a partner with Beth Fairman Kenny from the mayor's office. And so Nancy, you know, do you have any questions or comments for our speakers? And then, you know, once we kind of finish the speaking topic, I'll open up for any other announcements you want to make. Oh, You were unmuted. Now I think you're muted again. Well, Beth,
Hey,
why don't you jump in
yeah,
while
I
you're
have
at it?
perfect. So my quick question. So I get a lot of times I'll have a person who will contact me who is returning to Columbus. We seem to be getting a lot of people, and as you're right, as Aaron said, the South Side's changed a lot. With this end result, will this be launched in a way that general populace can look at it, or is this going to be just something for stakeholders to view?
Great question. I don't think that we have fully figured that part out, but we can definitely keep that in mind and keep in touch with Carla about our progress and make sure that we're updating all of you. And if you have feedback or suggestions for us, we're definitely willing and open to take them. And maybe also we'll touch base with you all perhaps before we do this again for the summer, in case there's other areas that you think would be important or other metrics that you are interested in having our students collect. They did have fun. I should also mention that we also gave them cameras and asked them to take pictures of different themes, just as a different way of collecting data. And so we have put together a booklet of just their thoughts, as being a high schooler on the South Side, what does success look like to you? And then they would take a picture of what that theme looked like to them and their community. So that's another kind of nice aspect of this project, I think.
Kathy, am I unmuted now? This is Nancy.
You are, Nancy. Yes.
Finally,
Yeah.
it's always a struggle. I appreciate this project so much. The other question I had, other than Beth's question, was there's a resource for food that's non-governmental, and it's called the Food Soldier. And it's a Facebook group, and you have to join in order to access it, but it doesn't cost anything to join. So for example, how would you add that or not add that to your map? And then the second thing is, this has been started before the promise for Columbus City School high school graduates to be able to go to Columbus State free for 2 years. So is this a living process? Would someone talk to a high school student since this has been announced? Those are my questions. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, thank you. So our map only represents physical establishments because the students are going and walking along the streets on both sides of the streets. They're only able to capture what is physically there. But I think as far as the Southside Thrive Collaborative's website, they probably would be interested in other resources that may be available to the South Side that don't have a physical establishment. So that might be something to mention to connect with Sarah Lanke. And as far as high school students, so these students came to us from the Upward Bound Math and Science program that is also sort of housed in HNHF. So that's how we recruited students. So a lot of those students are interested in science and engineering and technology, math careers, and are interested in post-secondary education, but I'm not quite sure how that relates to the promise that you mentioned.
And one more question, I'll put this in the chat. With the stories of the students of taking pictures, I don't know if you're familiar, GCAC, there's 2 artists are working on the CBUS Stories project. And when I hear about the story of the student walking down and also the photographs, I'm going to put that link in the chat. If any of the students would be interested in sharing this story of data collecting and maybe the people that they met and those images, because these artists are also looking at doing a final project. And I'll put the link in the chat.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you, Beth. I see that in the chat. So there's just so many, even there's a youth advisor to the area commission. There's an education advisor. There's a seat. There's a religious and social services seat, right? There's some work that we've been doing around safety, health, welfare, and equity on the area commission that we didn't really have a second set of goals for, right? We had completed a few goals like diversity training for the area commissioners and some efforts around affordable housing and alternatives to public safety. But there's just so many different ways that you can take all of this great information that you're collecting and kind of look at it from a different lens, right? And a different perspective. So I really think, and because I personally, I prefer to be data driven, and to assess trends over time and so on, right? And to kind of focus on one improvement or another, and then kind of see how that has had an impact. And so yes, I think this is a really good thing. I guess one other mapping I should mention, and I think I mentioned it at the area commission meeting, is the Neighborhood Design Center, who's a partner to PAMA, and for all of the NCR corridors within the city, is redoing their inventory. And so, as more of a design-oriented, planning-oriented group, they'll review all of the businesses on Parsons Avenue, and they will grade them according to the condition of the building and the condition of the signage, and then vacant or not vacant, which I think was one of your topics also. And so, that's just another set of data and that gets done, I think, every 2 years. And again, can be kind of then used to compare, right? How has Parsons Avenue changed since the last time that inventory was made? And then one more, item is Tom Less, who's the area commissioner for Marion Village, has been working with an OSU civil engineering class. It has the studio or something like that. And there's a couple projects they're working on this semester and then also into next semester. One of which is connecting some residents along Alum Creek, which is pretty disconnected from the rest of the south side just because of railroad crossings and some other things. Trying to get some way to integrate those residents to access, right? Pedestrian access, bike access. And then also looking at Lockbourne Road, which is another commercial corridor within the south side, especially from Phoebus down to Marion Road, and looking at proposals for infrastructure improvements to make it a more walkable, more transportation friendly corridor as well. And so, that there'll be some recommendations that'll come out of those two projects. And so I'm just so excited to have, the students at Ohio State involved in these different activities. In this particular case, a high school residents on the south side involved in these activities. Certainly appreciate the support from Nationwide Children's Hospital and the Healthy Neighborhoods, Healthy Families projects, because I think this would be such a different south side without the involvement of all of those resources here. So I really appreciate it. So I'm going to close this topic unless anyone has any further questions.
Thank you all so much. It was nice to meet you. And we'll be in touch. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Nancy, did you have anything you wanted to add before I close, if you can get off mute? But I did also mention the city council committee tonight.
Okay, that's what I was going to mention.
Okay.
Thank you. That's what
All right,
I've got.
All right, well, thank you. I will get this recording up on the site. And we'll get it sent out to all of our stakeholders. Appreciate everyone's participation. Have a great rest of the day and a good holiday, whatever you celebrate.
Thank you,
Thanks,
you too.
Kathy.